In this quick video, I will show you how to experiment and quickly visualize some of your environment assets in Substance Painter when you don't have an idea of how you would want to texture those environment assets. You have them modeled, but in terms of what kind of material that you want to use for visual look, you haven't figured that out yet. And this is a great way to quickly visualize and experiment so you can decide what type of material that you're going to end up using on your assets. And I do this a lot, especially for modular assets. So let's get into it. So here in Maya, I have a bunch of modular assets already modeled, but they have not been UV'd, and I don't quite have the visual style down. I have an idea of what I want to do with them and what kind of materials I would want to apply, but I'm not there yet. I want to experiment and see what I could get out of them. So I don't have the visual style down yet. So the first thing I do is I just take one of the assets, and in this case, I'm going to take one of these walls, and I'm going to export this as my kind of playing around asset. And I'm going to use it to import it into Substance Painter to experiment with. Because most of these walls, I have a bunch of walls here, they're going to use the same material, same texture. And I just want to kind of see what I would want to have this wall to be visually like. So since I haven't done any UVs, and I don't want to spend a lot of time UVing in order to experiment with, I'm just going to do a quick UV editor and I'm going to apply automatic on it. So inside the UV editor, I'm going to select the mesh. And I'm just going to, already did the automatic, but you just simply select the mesh, and whatever UVs you have on your object, whenever you model, they're going to be a mess. So just do a quick automatic, create, and automatic, and just use these as a starting point. Now, eventually I would go back through and UV every mesh properly, but right now I just want to quickly get it out of Maya so I can just apply some of the materials and test and experiment with. So automatic will do exactly what I want it to do. So once you're done automatic, go ahead and export your mesh as an FBX by going to File, Export Selection. And I'm going to use FBX Export and Smoothing Groups enabled, Smooth Mesh enabled, and then save it into a folder where you can find it inside Substance Painter. I already did this, so let's jump over to Substance Painter. Inside Substance, let's go ahead and load that in. I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to set up a template using Unreal Engine 4, which will work also for Unreal Engine 5. And then I'm going to select the mesh that I exported, which is this wall 300A. I'm going to use document resolution 2048. It doesn't really matter what you select on your resolution. You can always change this. And this is also just an experiment. I'm not going to be saving this project. And that's the only thing I'm going to set up. Unreal Engine 4 gives you all the presets that you need. So just go ahead, load the new mesh, select OK. And then I'm going to bake my textures really quick by going to Texture Set Settings, scroll down, and then Bake Mesh Maps. Or you can also go and click on this icon right here at the very top, Baking, shortcut key is F8. And the only thing I'm going to change here is output size to the same one that I had selected for texture resolution. And I'm just going to bake selected textures. Since this is automatic, unwrapped, I won't have any problems with baking issues. And then let's go back to painting mode. Now the key to this is not saving your project. Once you opened up a project, this is now your time to experiment and not have to worry about actually texturing. First of all, our UVs are not done. We just did a quick automatic so we can mess around and decide on the visual look. And also by not saving, you're not worried about having to complete this asset. And you're simply going to experiment and just throw a bunch of materials on top and pretty much just mess with this asset and all the materials you have, or even downloaded materials. And almost like sketching, you're just trying things out and see what type of material you would want to use. And then when you're done, you simply would just shut down Substance, write down what material you would want to use, and then you would finish the mesh, finish the UVs, and then start a whole new project in Substance, and that's the one you would save. But you would know which material you would want to use. So just by looking at this mesh, I would just start typing in. So like, for example, let's go to steel. So I can do regular materials or smart materials, and there's quite a few available by default inside Substance. So I would just start dragging, but left click or hold and drag each of these materials onto my mesh and just let Substance do the work. And just taking a look, probably I wouldn't want to use this. I'm going to jump over back to layers, and every time you add a new material on top, you're going to have a whole new folder setup or folder structure, a layer added on top. So after I would apply a few, just see what kind of what I would want to do with this wall. If I don't like any of these, I would just go ahead and select them and just delete them. Maybe jump over to Smart Materials. Maybe let's do some of these steel painted and see what kind of look we would want to get. That's actually pretty cool. Maybe this would be one of them. And then once I like a material that is applied on the mesh, then you can open up and go into properties and kind of go down further. Maybe I would want to have a different wall color. So now I would just have to find the base material, select it, then scroll down into the properties of it, and then maybe change the color of the wall. Maybe let's go a little bit more blue, maybe a darker gray. I'm going to hold down Shift, right click, hold to reposition my light. And let's say I kind of like this. So I would write down this material that I may want to use, or maybe I would close this off. I don't like this one, I would delete it. And then continue experimenting with some other ones. Maybe I want to look into plastic, see what kind of plastic I have here. Maybe fiberglass, that looks interesting. Maybe do plastic glossy. Does not look good. Some of these materials actually take some of the properties from the layer below, so you got to be careful. So in this case it did not, but a lot of times you may notice that if you stack too many materials on top, some of the material properties may show up kind of from the layer below, so you got to be careful. Sometimes you may want to either disable the layer or just delete it altogether, and just so you have one layer that you're working with. It doesn't happen all the time, but on certain materials it does. And then you just go through and you experiment and kind of develop a visual look just by experimenting and doing this. And then once you like it, just write down whichever one you want to use for later. You can even go to Marketplace and then search for some other material you may want to use. So for example, wallpaper, and just kind of see, maybe you want to apply some kind of a wallpaper on top. And then whenever you like it, you just check it out, see if it works, and then you download it. And then you can quickly experiment with new materials that are not available inside your library, inside Substance Painter. And then again, once you are done doing this, don't save anything. Just remember whichever one you wanted to use. Shut down Substance. Go back to your 3D modeling application, and then go ahead and do your proper UVs, export, do whatever you need to do, and then you would import into Substance all over again, but then you would save that project. And then you already know which material that you would want to use for your mesh. And if you keep Substance Painter open, let's say you want to experiment with another mesh, you don't have to start a whole new project. You can just re-import a new mesh and just experiment with other textures on another mesh. So for example, if I wanted to quickly take this floor and do exactly the same thing, I'll keep the Substance Painter open, and let's say I want to experiment with this floor, and I'm quickly going to do the same thing. I already have automatic applied, but you just go to automatic, just run quick automatic UVs for this exercise, and then go through and export again, export selection. And then I'm simply going to go to edit, project configuration, and I'm going to reload a whole new mesh. I'm going to select, choose a new mesh that I want to experiment and test with, and it's this floor 300. Open it, click OK. It's going to bring it in. It's going to continue applying whatever material I have inside the layers. So I'm just going to quickly delete it. And it won't let me right now. So let me rebake the textures. I'm going to go back to texture settings, bake mesh maps, rebake them. Let's go back to the painting mode, back to layers. Let's go ahead and delete it. And now let's try out some other materials. So let's do floor and apply the same process. Just start throwing a bunch of materials on top of here, experimenting, tweaking the settings, and see which one you would like to use for whenever you are done with the mesh and begin texturing. And I really like doing this experimentation and visualization process, because I know that this working session will not be something that I have to force myself to create from beginning to end, and that it allows me to just freely experiment and mess around inside Substance Painter and go through and just download materials and just try them out.